With the increased popularity of red dots out there, you see the most commonly asked question is asking how to zero these, because you look at how rifles are zeroed and stuff. It's a similar concept, but we've had this floating red dot, and trying to figure out what you need to do with that can be a little intimidating. So Caleb and I will go through a couple little drills to help you kind of fine tune this and make it go a little easier for you. So first off, how far back do you go?
Well, so that depends, right? There's a couple of different schools of thought on this, and both of us are big believers in shooting a group at 10 yards to establish your initial zero, and then confirming that zero at whatever a more long range distance is, whether it's 25 or 30 or whatever you want to shoot at. But as we both know, there's some challenges if you're shooting that 10-yard group, right?
Yeah, and when we talk about a group, right, we want 3 shots that are basically pretty close to touching each other, if not touching each other. If you shoot a few rounds and they're just, one's high left, one's high right, and one's low, it's not giving you much to go off of to actually adjust the red dot itself into a different position. So you need to get comfortable actually shooting a group before you can actually successfully zero this. Now, you'll see a lot of different methods out there. If you're having, troubles just standing on a flat range and shooting a group, you may bring in the help of a sandbag or something like that to rest off of.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to shoot off a sandbag, I also recommend setting yourself up in a seated position, but one where you're actually upright and holding the gun. If you're hunched over to get into a sandbag, what you've done now is you're zeroing out of a position you're not going to be looking at the gun through. So try to build your support up so it brings the gun naturally into your eyesight. And of course, all of that's why I like to zero the gun standing up. But again, to be able to zero the gun while standing up and holding it in 2 hands, you have to be able to shoot a group. So there is a level of proficiency you need to have to do this.
Yep, for sure. Now, one of the things is like, what equipment do you need? The first off, I always laugh is make sure that you have the proper wrench or tool to actually work the windage and elevation adjustments on your red dot. Each one is different. They all have something different. Like this, the Hollow Sun series, they all come with an actual tool. It's a small flathead.
The primary arms micro red dot I have actually did come with an Allen wrench to adjust it, which of course I immediately lost. So we've got a Allen wrench in our little screwdriver here to do those side adjustments for me.
Yeah, when you look at different red dots across, you'll see, like, I think the Trijicon series, you can use the rim of a cartridge. There's a lot of different options, but make sure before you come out here, it never fails, and it's happened to me too many times to count. I would come out here, shoot, go to zero, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot the tool. And you're just kind of out.
And now your range day is basically ruined.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So we're here at 10 yards, and so what we want to do is we're going to shoot 3 rounds on target. We have a little 1-inch square out there. Now the purpose of shooting at this 1-inch square instead of a large 8-inch bullseye or something like that is to get a proper zero. Because if we zero at 10 yards on a 8-inch circle and we shoot a group and it's, I don't know, 3 inches further left inside that 8-inch circle, when we go back at further distance, that's going to keep carrying itself. It's actually not a proper zero. So you need to get a nice tight group on something similar to a 1-inch square at 10 yards.
Now, the only difference between what you're going to do with shooting 3 rounds, what I'm going to do with the 856 Toro, is I'm only actually going to shoot 2 rounds. Now, again, to do this, you need to be able to shoot 2 rounds that are basically right on top of each other. The reason I do this with the 6-shot revolver is it gives me 1 extra opportunity to make that side adjustment. And also, with the revolver, I strongly recommend shooting it in double action versus in single action. While the single action trigger pull is easier for sure for people to manage, the gun actually times up slightly differently. Long mechanical explanation for this, but ultimately your point of impact is different between double action and single action, and I believe you should zero the gun in the mode you're most likely to shoot it in. And as a defensive revolver, that's always going to be double action.
Yeah. So once we get these groups, we're going to see, where these rounds are on target in comparison to our 1-inch square. Then we're going to come back to our red dot and we're going to make the proper adjustments. When we look at these red dots, you'll see normally there's a lasered mark of a U that stands for up and an arrow direction to actually pull the rounds up into where you want to go. So second, you have the windage on the side, usually labeled R with an arrow pointing in a rightward direction. So once we make those shots, then we're able to actually come over here and make some proper clicks. Now, are there anything to clicks on the micro red dot systems?
They're all different.
Yeah.
Some of them have very discernible fine clicks that will move the point of impact a specific amount. Some of them have a sweep where you're just going to be like, I'm going to turn it, and then we're going to shoot again and see where that bullet lands.
Yeah. In a perfect scenario, yes, if it's a 2 MOA, I want to move over 3 clicks. You know, I've taken a little bit of just kind of going as I go and seeing where my shots are, making small adjustments if I'm just a little bit off, and larger adjustments if I'm really far off, and then fine tuning from there. So
A good rule of thumb is if you have an optic like the primary arms optic that has just sweep adjustments and doesn't have minute clicks, is if you use an Allen key, you can stick it in relative to the dot and go 1/8 turns or quarter turns or half turns, and that'll give you an idea while you're moving that Allen key of how much adjustment you've actually dialed.
yeah. So once we do that, I want to keep in mind too, if you got to feel like those shots are good shots too. If you throw one, man, just ignore it, get it out of the way, and go ahead and work on another one. Try to get a nice, good 3-shot group. That's what we're trying to get, or a 2-shot group itself. So if you throw one, it happens to all of us. Whatever, move about. Yeah, right. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So just keep that in mind. So it might be a little frustrating in the beginning, but definitely just keep at it and get that nice, good group. So we'll go ahead and give this a try. All right, Caleb, you can go ahead and load and make ready. And we're gonna put 2 rounds at that 1-inch square at 10 yards.
All right. Now when I do this, I'm going to use continuous pressure on that trigger. So I don't want to stage it. I want to get a nice clean trigger press. Even though it may look like we're stopping, we're actually still always applying pressure. Looks like I parked those right on top of each other,
Yeah.
a little bit too down, and like I would say those are down and to the left a little bit. They're on the bottom left edge of the 1-inch square, but I'd be pretty happy with that as an initial 2-shot group.
Yeah, for sure.
So what I would do here is I would actually make an adjustment, and I'm going to give this just a little baby turn up. Not too much. And maybe a wee baby turn to the right. Again, not too much, because I don't think I need that much to get this dialed in. Nope, that one is right down Broadway.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I would say stacking those 2 rounds on top of each other right in the middle of that 1-inch square is good to go. Now what I'll do is I'll save these last 2 rounds and I'll use these to confirm at 20 or 25 yards.
Yep, for sure.
All right, well now I'm all cleared out, Cody, so let's see you. All right, go ahead and make ready.
Tool ready. Now one thing I want to keep in mind is I'm going to turn that dot down to a very crisp dot. I don't want that dot over blaring on this 1-inch square here. So come up. Okay, so you can see that's pretty far high left. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and adjust that over.
But the important thing is it is consistent.
It is consistent.
You know exactly where those rounds are. If someone parks 2 rounds that close, I'm going to be able to say, yeah, you're shooting correctly.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to go ahead. We need these rounds to move to the right. So we will twist this. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. And we're going to come down.
I'd say about down the same.
Yeah.
That you need to come right. As you can tell, this is a fine science.
Yeah, right.
You know, very high-tech stuff we're doing out here. All right, let's go for it.
All right.
All right, that looks like you parked those rounds basically right on top of each other. And I would say you gave it what, 4 right the first time?
Yep.
I'd give it 2 more right, and I would give it probably 3 down.
I'm
I
gonna shoot
think you
one
shanked
more.
that. I think you
Yep,
shanked that first shot. Shoot
I
it
did.
again. Yep, I was right. You shanked that first one.
Yep.
So
So
now you're on.
now I'm on. So I wasn't tight as tight grouped as Caleb over here, but we got there nonetheless. So yeah, so now we'll go back and verify at 25.
Yeah,
See what we're
absolutely.
doing. All right, now we're back at 25 yards. We want to verify our 10-yard zero. So what's the purpose of this, Caleb?
So the idea is you want to make sure that you know where your point of impact is, regardless of the range that you're shooting at. I've zeroed at 10 yards. We're right on the target. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to go back to 25, and I'm going to open up my acceptable hit area. And now I've got a 4-inch X-ring and an 8-inch circle around that. I want to be able to keep all 6 shots out of this gun in that 8-inch circle, and preferably most of them in that 4-inch circle in the center.
Yep. And now how many shots are you going to shoot at this?
I'm going to shoot 6 at this distance. Again, I want to make sure that I'm actually shooting a consistent group, and it's all just going to be slow fire, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we're going to try to simulate as close to a match condition or a more real life long distance shooting.
Yeah, and I would keep in mind too, like if you come up and like I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group to verify, and if you shoot 2 rounds, you're feeling a little fatigued, come back in, take a breath,
Yeah, absolutely.
come back out and finish it off. There's no reason why you have to hurry up or stand out here, for all 5 rounds or 6 rounds. Like we're trying to access a actually great group here. We're trying to see what we can do and the gun can do at this distance. So
Yep. Yeah, if you start to get tired, pull that gun back, relax, take your time, make sure that your shot is good. Because you can take a mulligan, but you have to be able to identify it.
exactly. All right, so let's go ahead and give it a shot. Caleb, you can load and make ready.
All right, let's see how this goes. I think now my eyes aren't that great, but I think that's all X's.
I think so. Good shooting.
Thanks.
All right, so let's see about my 5-shot group here.
All right, let's
I don't know
go.
if I can match that, but
All right,
all right,
let's go take a look at our groups.
for sure.
All right, so we're back up on the targets, and at 25 yards, I called it all X's. Turns out I got 3 that are 10s, but we have a really discernible group here. What I would do real world with this is after shooting this group, I would make a sight adjustment. I would want to move my point of impact to the left based on where the center of that group is, and then I'd be done. I would make that slight adjustment, moving my point of impact left, because our elevation here is pretty solid. If you move these over, I basically then all have X's on that.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a really good benefit of like fixed barrel revolvers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's,
The mechanical accuracy that you're going to get from something where the barrel never moves is always going to be really good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on mine over here, I got a little different story. So I've got 3 that you can see pretty close in on where I was aiming here. 2 out here that I'm like, might have been me, might have been the gun, who knows. But what this does tell me though is my zero is going to be pretty on point. I have a solid kind of group here of what it's actually doing. There's nothing, grouped up way right, way left, or way, far down below. So I'm actually pretty happy on this. I might go back and try that again while I'm at the range, see if I can fine tune that in and bring it in a little bit. But, at this point, I'd probably be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about yours is if you look at your group like it's a circle, the actual geometric center of your group is probably right about in there. So if I was out zeroing regardless of the gun, I would shoot that and I'd be like, all right, that looks pretty good. Now, just like you, I would immediately go back and try to
Yeah,
shoot it
exactly.
again,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I would also know that that's going to be an acceptable mechanical 0 on that gun.
Yep.